Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Israel, and this is Parashat Sh'lach. Send them. This parasha is also known as Parashat HaMeraglim, the chapter of the spies. And this can be found in Numbers 13, 14, and 15. This one is called The Bigger They Are. So, I trust everyone had a wonderful, restful Shabbat and a great week thus far. And I hope that you also face challenges so big that looking upon them, you felt like a tiny grasshopper. Tamir, what are you talking about? What I'm saying is, the bigger they are, finish it. Okay, you do that. Let us begin. Chapter 13, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send out for yourself men who will scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. You shall send one man, each for his father's tribe. Each one shall be a chieftain in their midst. Shlach lecha anashim vayeturu et eretz Canaan." So the translation pretty much nailed it over here when it said, "Send for yourself." I don't know what your translation says, but that's what it is, as in for you, for your own sake. Now, even though it begins with God commanding Moses to send out people to check out the land, the language is very indicative of that, of the benefit of this is basically for us, for Moses, for the people, not necessarily for God's sake, although everything ultimately is for God's sake. So in this particular case, God allowed this exclusively for the sake of who? Of Moses. It actually says particularly because Moses asked him. In the book of Deuteronomy, we get a much better description of what took place. And Moses tells the people that it was because they actually approached him with the idea and he went for it. Now, you see, it never crossed Moses' mind to go and check out the promised land, which God had said beforehand. You know, he's like, God said it was a land flowing of milk and honey, so clearly it is a land flowing of milk and honey. So, why did Moses then agree to this? Now check this out. It wasn't for his own curiosity or lack of faith, heavens forbid. I mean, this is Moses after all. I also believe he's earned the right of us giving him the benefit of the doubt. Everything that he does is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. And this instance was actually no different. Most of the commandments they have received during the period of the wilderness were based upon the land of Israel. When you go into the land, you shall do this, you shall do that. There were specific laws for the land, a large majority. So this is also, the same commands are relevant to today. Nothing changes in God's words. So Moses, who is the number one lover of God and his word, wanted to know everything there was to know about how to perform these mitzvot, even if he himself would not necessarily enter into the land. He wanted to know because it was the Torah. It was the word of God, and he knew that the way to God is through his word. So when these shady dudes came to him and said, "Hey, let's go and check it out," he was quite literally blinded by the Torah. All he saw was, okay, great, a way that I can get closer and closer. And he also, of course, he judged his fellow man favorably. So God, who loves his son who loved him, said, okay, you want to send them? No problem. This one's for you, Moses. But also, God, knowing that Moses had eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand, would send him a hidden message within the very names of the men that came forth. A message that only Moses would understand. So Moses sent them from the desert of Paran by the word of the Lord. All of them were men of distinction. They were the heads of the children of Israel. These were like the top dogs over there. They were the heads. They were the leaders. They were the influencers. They were the people that the rest of the people followed. Now, it's because the people were swayed by them, it would ultimately lead to their demise in the wilderness, to all the people's demise in the wilderness, which is why I cannot stress this enough. Be careful of who you follow. Be careful of who you call rabbi. Be careful of who you call preacher or pastor or teacher or anything. Be careful of who you follow. Yes, myself included. I'm no different. You got to do your own work here. I'm just one of many, many. If anyone causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world for the causes of sin. These stumbling blocks, listen to me, these stumbling blocks must come, but woe to the man through whom they come. All the things that have happened, as terrible as they might seem, they all had to happen. Just like we see right here in the Parsha. But woe to the man. In this particular case, the men. I'm sure in your lives there are plenty of those. Now, often it takes one sad excuse for a human being to cause an entire community to stumble. Sometimes he has help, sometimes he has enablers. The point is, watch your back. So we see that Moses wastes no time in getting the show on the road, and he assembles the leaders that were called to tour the land. And this is where God speaks to him through the names of those who were called. Ve'ele shmotam, and these are their names. For the tribe of Reuven, Shamua the son of Zakur. Reuven, Shamua ben Zakur. I'm just going to literally translate their names. Hear and remember. For the tribe of Shimon, it was Shaphat ben Chori, the free man will judge. For the tribe of Judah, Kalev ben Yefuneh, his heart will turn. For the tribe of Issachar, Igal the son of Joseph, he will redeem and increase. For the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea the son of Nun, he will deliver, he will save. Hoshea is actually Joshua, Yehoshua, but his name right now is Hoshea. I'll explain. For the tribe of Benjamin, Palti the son of Raphu, he is my refuge. For the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel the son of Sodi, the goat of God who is secret. Remember last week we discussed the word Sod, Sodi? Sodi is my secret. For the tribe of Joseph, the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi, the son of Susi. Gadi, the goat, the son of Susi, my horse. For the tribe of Dan, Amiel, the son of Gemali, my people are God. For the tribe of Asher, Setur ben Michael. Setur is to hide away. For the tribe of Naphtali, Nachbi, the son of Vafshi. Nachbi means literally, we will hide. For the tribe of Gad, Geuel, the son of Machi, the Redeemer. So, the long and the short of it is that God showed Moses that ultimately the reason that these men suggested to go scout out the land is for the sake of hiding and concealing God's good works. At first you see, trust in God and his people and the Redeemer, and then you see they will hide. They will hide away, lastir. In other words, they're going to try and hide what God is trying to give the people. So Moses saw this. In other words, they're trying to take away God's promise to the people, his love for the people. And worst of all, God would ultimately not keep his word if they were swayed from entering the land. So without hesitation, immediately Moses calls Joshua to him in the very next verse, which says, "These are the names of the men Moses sent to scout the land. And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua." Right away, no delay. So first of all, we understand from this, and that up until this point, Joshua was known as Hoshea, like we discussed. The reason that it wasn't written like this was actually out of respect for Moses, because he's the one who changed Joshua's name. In every other time in the Tanakh, when there was a name change, God was the one that gave the name change, right? It was either to Yaakov, it was to Abraham and to Sarah, and except for Moses was named by the daughter of Pharaoh, and then he named her Batia, because, anyway, out of respect to her. So, Hoshea means will save. While Moses added the Yud is part of God's name. In other words, Yah Hoshea, Yehoshua, God is the one that will save. In other words, God will save him. So, why did Moses have to pray for his servant and bless him with the changing of his name? Because he saw that he might have fallen, that he might very well fall into temptation unless God himself protected and saved him. Moses and Joshua, they were a pair. They were like a rabbi and a beloved student. Moses was likened to the sun while Joshua was likened to the moon. Moses shone like the sun, and then the sun reflects off the moon. Yeah. And we know that Joshua never left Moses' side, unless commanded to do so, as he would eventually carry the mantle of leader, and also the mantle of Mashiach type. This entire time in the wilderness, he was being groomed for leading the people into the promised land. Should he fail, that would make God a liar, and that simply cannot be. Moses saw all of this. God just showed him. He was given the authority to instill the name of God in another person. Joshua, the son of Nun, future leader of Israel, now has the personal protection of the Almighty God during one of the worst downfalls of the children of Israel. And because of this, there still is hope. But what about Caleb, from the tribe of Judah, the tribe of kings? The scepter shall never leave Judah, Jacob said on his deathbed. Why did Moses pray for Joshua, but not for Caleb ben Yefuneh? The answer to this question, it will come later. But in the meantime, the hint is in the name. Caleb means like heart. Yefuneh means will turn. In other words, his heart will turn. Perhaps at the time, Moses didn't have the answer. Which way would his heart turn? Perhaps at the time, he was primarily concerned with his most faithful servant. God will give us the answer, though, later on. So, what happens next? Verse 17. Moses sent them to scout the land of Canaan, and he said to them, "Go up this way in the south and climb up the mountains." Now, before we continue, notice again how it says latur. Vaishlach ota Moshe latur et eretz Canaan. It says latur, to scout, or to tour, as in like English, to tour group. So that's really where it comes from. The word latur comes from the word tayar. Tayar means tourist. And it sounds the same in Hebrew and English. But nowhere do we find the word meragel, meraglim, spy or spies. Nowhere in this portion, yet it is known as Parashat Meraglim. So think of the difference in the most logical sense. Why? These 12 men, representing the 12 tribes of Israel, were tasked with entering the land and bringing back a report, a true report. Moses said, is it good, is it bad? Just tell us what's going on. So Moses, in the next few verses, he asked them to bring back a report about the inhabitants of the land, the fertility of the land, and the produce of the land. These three things. So what do tourists do if not given good reports of everything they see? How many of you guys came to Israel and you look for the good? I mean, there's plenty bad going on here, just like everywhere else, but you're not going to start taking pictures of all the wrongs that are going on. You're going to look at all the beauty because that's what you came to see. That's what tourists do. Here they were called latur et haaretz, just like tourists. Go and, bring back the good. So, what do spies do? Here's the opposite. What do meraglim do? If not, bring back negative reports from the places that they have been sent to. You go there, you spy on them. It's insinuating, tell me all the dirt and all the bad stuff that they do, so then later on I could hold that against them. Now we know that the story doesn't end well, obviously. We've all read this portion. If you have not, then go please read it, because you know what happens in the end. It's not good, but we can learn from this. And yet, though, it still says to tour and not to spy. However, from that time to this very day, this portion will always be known as Parashat Meraglim, as a lesson to us. Because it wasn't only what they said, but how they said it. The good man brings good things out of the good treasures of his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil treasures of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. See, we have Moses' view at this point. We're seeing everything from Moses' point of view. We know that they are evil, and so evil will be done. This, however, as we discussed earlier, it's inevitable. It had to have happened. But woe to them for being the vessels. So again, let's go back to verse 17. Moses sent them to scout the land of Canaan, and he said to them, "Go up this way in the south and climb up the mountain. Vayomer elehem alu la'alot aliyah," right? Alu ze b'negev. The Negev is the south of Israel. Darom in Hebrew means south. But when you're discussing the land of Israel, the Negev is the south of Israel. So that's why it says go up from the south. Va'alitem et hahar. So this verse right here had God's signature written all over it for so many reasons. But I want to just touch on just one of them in this verse. We discussed this last week a little bit, from darkness into light. The south is the lower realm. It is the pit. It is the filth. It is the chaos. Start there, as all things do from the time of creation, and make your way up the mountain, right? Start in the south and make your way up in the mountain. Because let's be real, Moses knew that the only place this motley crew could go from there was up. They can't go any lower than what they were doing. They had premeditated evil in their heart. So these were guiding words of wisdom that unfortunately for them, they fell on deaf ears. So they went up in the south, and he came to Hebron, and there were Achiam, Sheshai, and Talmi, the descendants of the giant. Now Hebron had been built 7 years before Tzoan of Egypt. Okay, so hold on just 1 second now. Did they just see the descendants of giants? Wait, were these metaphoric giants, or were these like legit giants? Well, we have their names, and we know that names mean something, so let's see what our sages say about their names, about these three dudes right here. The first one was Achiman, for he used to say, Achi, my brother. This is how we say it here in Israel. We go, Achi, ma matzav Achi. What's up, my brother? So he said, Achi, manna will come to me. Achi, man ipol alai. In other words, this dude was so close to the heavens that he might as well very, very well be hit by manna in the face. The second one was Sheshai. Comes from the word shaish. Sheshai is shin shin yud. If you just take the yud and you place it in between the shins, you have shaish. Shaish means marble, because this dude was solid, like a mountain of marble. And the third one was Talmi. Talmi comes from the word telim, which means trail, like a tractor leaves tilamim wherever it goes when it starts to till the earth. Because this dude was so big that he would leave trails wherever he walked. So these were legit giants, that big. Not just like, we're not talking about shack type. We're talking about like gigantic building types. Our sages say that these guys were so big that they actually eclipsed the sun. Now, Hebron had been built 7 years before Tzoan of Egypt. Okay, so who cares? Why? Why is it mentioned here? It's important why it's mentioned here. Because the Negev, Hebron in particular, was called the garbage dump of Israel. It was absolutely the least impressive out of the entire land. And yet, look at the remarkable fruits and fertile land that the worst part of Israel has to offer. So can you imagine what the good parts of Israel have to offer? This shows us that the worst in Israel is better than the best, even in Egypt. And this actually goes back to the children of Noah, to the descendants of Noah. Each one took a different plot of land. Canaan, as in the land of, settled in where it was the land of Canaan. He chose to start building actually in Hebron, which was the worst part of Israel. And he just sort of spread on from there. And Mitzrayim, Egypt, started building the land of Egypt. So we're getting great info about this one verse, but we still have yet to discuss the best part. Yup, there's a better part than giants in this verse. Vaya'alu banegev vayavo ad Chevron. They went up in the south, and he came to Chevron. Now, how many of your translations say, and they came to Chevron, or they went up in the south onto Chevron? But there's no he. It just went from plural to singular. So who is they went up in the south? These are the spies. But who is the he who came up to Chevron? There are actually two singularities over here, which we will discuss very soon. So we're just going to put a pin in that, and we'll get back to it later. Next verse. They came to the valley of Eshkol. Now pay attention to what I'm reading. They came to the valley of Eshkol, this valley that was called Eshkol. They cut a branch with a cluster of grapes. They carried it on a pole between two people, and they also took some pomegranates and figs. They called that place the valley of Eshkol because of the cluster, Eshkol, that the children of Israel cut from there. You understand that? But didn't the last verse begin with the name of the place? How could this place be called Nachal Eshkol when they arrived if it was called that because of what they took from there and then later on named it? I'll answer it like this, because you're going to see a lot of these in the Torah, but here's the similarities that I see, okay? In other words, it always was called the Valley of Eshkol, even though they named it later. So here's how I see it. When a Gentile converts to Judaism, he or she always was considered to have a Jewish soul, okay? When a Gentile converts to Judaism, they are given a new name because they are reborn. And they come home where they belong, where they always belonged. But this new name, though may have only been presented to them during this space-time continuum, okay, now you did this, here's your name, this was always their name, given to them by God since the beginning of time. You get it? All right, let's move along. They returned from scouting the land at the end of 40 days. So here's that magical number again, associated with great heights and great falls. The trials will be overcome, or those who are tried will be overcome by said trials. They went, and they came to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the desert of Paran to Kadesh. They brought them back a report, as well as to the entire congregation, and they showed them the fruit of the land. Here, they're making a presentation right now. So now, there are two ways that you could look at this verse. I wrote it down a little bit more modern day English so you'll understand. Here's two ways that you could look at this. One, they wasted no time when returning from their mission, as they zealously went straight to Moses, Aaron, and before the entire congregation of Israel to give a report. Or two, they wasted no time when returning from their mission, as they zealously went straight to Moses, Aaron, and before the entire congregation of Israel to give a report. Did I say the same thing? Yes, I did. Very good. You picked up on that. Did I use exactly the same words? Yes. Was the meaning and intent behind both sentences different? In our Parsha, it is. And it all comes down to perspective. So let me give you some. I'm going to read this sentence again. But now I want you to close your eyes and imagine that all the 12 were complete tzaddikim, fully righteous dudes. We know they're not. But close your eyes for a second, and I want you to imagine that God sent 12 righteous men over there. They wasted no time when returning from their mission, as they zealously went straight to Moses, Aaron, and before the entire congregation of Israel to give a report. If they were tzaddikim, we can understand their zeal in going directly to Moses and before all the people, even before they would enter into their own tents, say hello to their wives and their children, who they haven't seen for a month, who were worried about them, and they sent them into a land. They might have been dead. Maybe take a quick shower or have a quick bite to eat, and then present themselves to Moses, Aaron, and the entire congregation looking somewhat presentable and respectable and cleaned up. But no, not our tzaddikim. They skipped all that in order to complete the command of God and Moses. Such dedication, such commitment, such self-sacrifice. But were these guys righteous or not? Option B. So now again, I'm going to read that sentence. And this time, you don't have to close your eyes or imagine that they were good, because we know the truth, that they were anything but. They wasted no time when returning from their mission, as they zealously went straight to Moses and Aaron and before the entire congregation of Israel to give their report. These guys couldn't wait to talk smack about the land. That's how bad they were. They did not go to say hi to their wives or to get cleaned up or to go say hi to their children. They ran to Moses because they could not wait to badmouth the land. Their entire purpose and plan from the very beginning, when they approached Moses, was to turn the people away from entering into the land of Israel and just keeping them right where they were. Now tell me, have any of you asked why? I'll tell you why. So here's why. I'm about to tell you their true motivation. And it's going to scare you. Hopefully, it's going to scare you straight. These men, as we know, were leaders in Israel. Like we stated, they were influencers. The people followed them. They were respected members of their tribes who had a lot of money and, most of all, positions of influence. Or in other words, they had a whole lot of power. Now they knew, just like everyone else, that everything that was going on in the desert, over there in the wilderness, was only a preparation of things to come. God was looking after them over there. He was feeding them, he was clothing them, all their needs were taken care of. They knew, though, that as soon as they enter into the land of Israel, their power and authority over the people would be gone, and they would be equal to everyone else. They knew that manna would no longer fall from the heavens, but rather they would have to go and work for their food and tend to the earth. They knew that they would have to cleanse the earth of the abominations that inhabited it during that time, according to God's command, which in the process they might very well lose their own fortune, they might lose men, they might lose land, and they might even lose their own lives. They knew that as soon as they crossed that border, playtime was over. But worst of all, should Israel be swayed and not enter into the land, that would have made God a liar. And as always, that can simply not be. And so, my friends, what is this likened to today? These leaders, who are clearly evil in the eyes of God and man, are like your leaders today who keep you out of the promises. These are the leaders who teach you Judaism, but discourage you from becoming a Jew yourself. And do you know why they do this? I'll tell you why they do this. Because once you start learning what Judaism really is, because right now many of you have no idea. You really don't. It's not just all the fluff that they teach you to keep, so you're satisfied over there, or pandering to your beliefs. I'm talking about the real deal, what it really is. Once you begin to learn the truth from a viable source, i.e., a legitimate rabbi for real, who not only knows and swims in the Word of God daily, but also actually lives according to how that individual teaches, even when the cameras are not on him. Now, once this happens, you gain knowledge, and with knowledge comes power. And once you learn Judaism as a true blue Jew, you will surpass your fake rabbi on all accounts, rendering him powerless. They can no longer come to you and say, thus says the Lord. Because you yourself, as a grown man or woman, know exactly what the Lord says. Because you learned it for yourself. So not only will they no longer keep you out of the promise, which is the commonwealth of Israel, but they will no longer have a authoritative hold over you, which is something that only exists, by the way, in the Catholic Church, in Messianic Judaism, Scientology, and many other cults. Pick your poison. Once this happens, my friends, not only will you surpass them, but you will see the lies that they have been feeding you. You're going to see it for yourselves, thereby completely and utterly exposing their hypocrisy. And this is something that they cannot have. So they will start to sway you with logic at first. I mean, they might say true things so that you all know, oh, yeah, he speaks the truth, no problem. But like the snakes that they are, that's where they begin to mix their lies. And that is how you all become deceived. So let me make a statement and a declaration right here on this public setting. If you, as a Gentile, before God, because this is between you and God and nobody else, if you as a Gentile before God have it in your heart to become a Jew and take the law upon yourself, becoming Jacob, the original branch, truly being grafted in, should any man or woman, especially leaders, discourage you or attempt to stop you from doing so, run like your soul depends on it, because it does. So now I hope we can understand just a little bit better what we're reading here and what many of you are going through. I've seen it for myself. I know your struggle. So now look what these snakes do. No, not only your snakes. Let's look what these snakes do. We could see this is how it is. Verse 27. They told him and said, "We came to the land which you sent us, and it is flowing with milk and honey. And here are its fruits." They make a presentation. It's a pretty impressive fruit right there, right? On the surface now, everything seems to be in order. They just started with praise, a land flowing with milk and honey, they said, right? But you know what bothers me in this verse? It's the little nuances, and this is what you always have to pay attention to, okay? It's not only what people say, it's how they say it. Because, again, from the heart, the mouth speaks. The little nuance is that if you don't pay attention to every word while knowing the intention of the heart that spoke it, you'll miss it. We came to the land to which you sent us. They just stated that before Moses, Aaron, and the entire congregation of Israel. Even though the spies and Moses knew that it was them who initially came to Moses. It was their idea. Like, yeah, we think, okay, yeah, Moses says, so whatever happens now, this is Moses doing. This is what Moses wants. But they gave a true report. So now they're speaking publicly, stating that it was Moses' idea to begin with, which is not true. Yet they mixed it with truth. You see how this is done? Sneaky, sneaky. And here are its fruits. Look, we said words. We show things. Now you have no reason to doubt anything that comes out of our mouths because we spoke truth. Okay? That's how it works. Now look what comes next. Notice the decline. However, the people who inhabit the land are mighty, and the cities are extremely huge and fortified. And there we saw even the offspring of the giant. Did they give a true report or not? They did. But do you see how the however right there, after something seemingly positive, means that something negative is about to come, even if it's not negative, even if it is the truth? So even though they gave a true and accurate report, you could tell where they were taking things. How many times have we all heard this? Oh, so-and-so is such a great person. I love them to death, but... And we all know what comes next. So now you see, how do you think the people are feeling? People of the children of Israel, how do you think they're feeling at this point? Could you imagine? One dude says to his friends, like, I'm sorry, Moses, did you just say giant? Did he just say giant? He said giant? I heard a giant. He says, yeah, giant. No, I think he said the people in the land were compliant. Oh, okay. Yeah. The cities were large and fortified, but the inhabitants were compliant. Okay, good, because I almost just soiled myself. I heard giants and fortified cities. No problem. But the wicked spies continue. The Amalekites dwell in the southland, while the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains and the mountain region. The Canaanites dwell on the coast and alongside the Jordan. Okay, Amalekites in the south, while the Hittites and Jebusites and Amorites dwell in the mountain range. The Canaanites dwell on the coast and alongside the Jordan. There's nowhere to go in the land. Now, do we remember Amalek? We should. It's a command. They are the bane of our spiritual existence. And that's why they threw them right in there. Boom, Amalek. Okay. And then you have all the other abominable nations in the four corners of the land which God said that we would have to take out. Or did he? Because if I recall correctly, God said that he himself will be the one to drive them out before us. Granted, fighting will take place, but we will be victorious. Should we, listen to God. So after they threw that on top of the large fortified cities and the giants, how do you think the people were feeling now? Safe to say, queasy, maybe a little rumble in the tummy, kind of nauseous, like, oh my God, what do you think? So try and picture what's going on here right now. The spies are heavily influencing the people. Their plan is working. They're getting them all riled up. People are in fear. They can tell that panic is setting in. Moses can't say anything because they just gave a true report. What can you say? Yes, all these things happened. They reported on the fertility of the land. They brought back fruit as they were commanded, and they gave a report about its inhabitants. So what do they do then? They send up the prince of the mighty tribe of Judah, Caleb ben Yefuneh, one whose heart will turn, as the final nail in the coffin that was God's plan to enter the land. The question is again, which direction did his heart turn in? The spies believe that he was with them. That's why they gave him the floor. Caleb gets up on high, where everyone can see and hear him. The people are anxious. The spies are holding their breath, like, here we go, that's it. He's going to knock everyone out. And Moses and Aaron are, just face palming it, and their hearts are broken at this point, like again, like more. And then Caleb silenced the people because they listened to him. And he said, we can surely go up and take possession of it, for we can indeed overcome it. Everyone heard that. And let me tell you, his words shook the heavens. For now we know which direction his heart actually turned. Now we can remove that pin that we placed back in verse 22. Let's take that out. Vaya'alu b'negev vayavo ad Chevron. They went up in the south, and he came to Hebron. Who is he who came up to Hebron? I told you two singularities. He was Caleb ben Yefuneh from the tribe of Judah. And what did he encounter in Hebron? I mean, we know that there were giants there, but what did he encounter? He encountered those who make the giants themselves look like tiny grasshoppers, and not the other way around. He encountered the graves of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in Hebron. This was proof that God's word is good. This is prophecy being fulfilled right here. He fell on their graves and he prayed to God in the merit of these tzaddikim who started it all. Remember, the promises were given to them. That his heart should not be swayed towards lies and deceitfulness, like the spies, but that God grant him courage to stand up before all the congregation of Israel and roar like the lion of the tribe of Judah. We can surely go up and take possession of it, for we can indeed overcome it. God heard his cries, and God knew his heart. And so the other singularity that went up to Hebron with Caleb was God himself, to let his children, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, know it's time. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to stand up for what is right, even when the overwhelming majority is wrong, to overcome peer pressure and the promise of wealth and title, to stand for truth at the cost of our very lives. This is where the leaders began to panic, because for that moment right there, he captivated the people's hearts and instilled courage and hope. But the men who went up with him said, we are unable to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. But the Hebrew says, Ki chazak hu mimenu. Mimenu translates not to them, not to we, but he. Oh yes. The giants in the land cannot beat God. That's what they just said. Now, at this point, there's no doubt where they stand. They're panicking. They're in full panic mode. They're going open right now. Once they get opposed publicly, gracious deceit doesn't do the trick anymore. So now what do? They lay it on nice and thick. Look at the next verse. They spread an evil report about the land which they had scouted, telling the children of Israel. They just started with, they spread an evil report. God said so. Boom. The land we passed through to explore is a land that consumes its inhabitants, and all the people we saw in it are men of stature. Big dudes. And now they're already repeating themselves. Oh, by the way, something you should know. The reason it was called Eretz Ochelet, Yoshvea, the land that consumes its inhabitants, because God made it possible for them to walk freely through the land. You see, Hebron was also a graveyard. There was a plague going on at the time. God was killing people left and right, so they would be consumed with burying all the dead and not looking at the 12 little spies over there. They saw that as a negative thing. While if you were a God-fearing person, say, wow, God is making everyone not pay attention to us right now because they could crush us or eat us or whatnot. So that's why they called it that when it's actually a good thing. So now, they're already repeating themselves and instilling yet more fear upon the people that they should listen to them. You don't know anything. I know. I'm a leader. You don't know anything. Do what I say. You don't know nothing. Heard that before? Yeah, pay attention. 33. There we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, descended from the giants. Only it says in the Hebrews, V'sham ra'inu et ha-nefilim b'nei Anak. The Nephilim, the sons of the giants, min ha-nefilim, from the Nephilim, as in like way back when, v'nehi be'enenu kachagavim, v'chen ha'inu be'enehem. In our eyes, we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. So first we saw in the text it said giants, and now we see Nephilim. So who are these Nephilim? Genesis 6:4. Hanephilim hayu ba'aretz bayamim hahem vegam achrechen. The Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also afterwards. When the sons of, it says, ve'avo b'nei Elohim, and the sons of God, ve'avo b'nei Elohim el b'not ha'adam, the sons of God came upon the daughters of men, and they bore them children, and these were giborim, mighty, asher me'olam anshe Hashem, who were of old, men of renown. So, these giants that they encountered, the Nephilim over there, they were from the same lines of the Nephilim from before. And we actually see them throughout the Tanakh, but they're not necessarily brought out like that. But I'll give you a little mention about that. So let's see what Rashi says about this. Now, Rashi, if you don't know, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, he was a Frenchman, super genius. He is actually the most popular commentator in Judaism. Let's see what he says about verse 33. Who are these Nephilim? The Nephilim, and I quote, giants who were the sons of Shem Chazai and Azael. Have we heard the name Azazel? We've heard this before, right? Sons of Shem Chazai and Azael, who fell from heaven during the days of Enosh. Not Enoch, Enosh. Enosh means mortal, who is the third from Adam. And we were in their eyes. Okay, so I've heard many explanations. That they were such. They saw themselves as such nothing. So it only seems it was a metaphor. They really weren't giants, and we really were not to them as grasshoppers. What does Rashi say? We heard them saying, as in the spies heard the giants saying, look, there are ants in the vineyard that look like men. How big is an ant compared to you? That'd be pretty scary to see, I think, right? Like a walking Empire State Building type of deal. Now, another commentator, Dat Mikra, says about the Nephilim, these were the giants that are written about in Greek mythology, who died by the sword and went down to Sheol, to Hades. As in this case, Clash of the Titans. In Greek mythology, the Titans were the children of the gods, the fallen angels. This is all crazy stuff, and here's its origin. In other words, crazy things happened, and from all these fallen angels, pagan religions started from there. So the names of the two fallen angels mentioned here are also mentioned by name in the book of Enoch. They're mentioned in Midrash Rabbah. They're mentioned in the Talmud. This is like legit. Now, you can also find many references to giants and fallen angels in the book of Enoch and in the book of Jasher. However, I don't want anyone to lose focus, okay? There was a point in my life that I was just going nuts about this stuff, and it got me just completely off the path. Yes, there were giants. Yes, there were fallen angels. I still believe there are giants, and yes, fallen angels. They don't just disappear, all right? There are demons, and there are spirits, and there are all sorts of principalities and powers. And yes, I do believe that it is important to recognize them. You can't just sweep it under the carpet and say no, because they're all part of God's creation, and they all serve a purpose. Because evil has many faces and many names. And in order to know how to combat this, we need to know what's up. But if you don't know its name, that's okay. You just know who your daddy is, and that's all you need to know. So I can understand how this intrigue can distract from what's important, which is knowing your God and keeping his commands. That is the most important thing. Because technically, this is what Kalev is saying, right? Why are you focusing on them? Who cares how big they are? Who cares how fortified their cities are? We might be ants compared to them physically, but they're nothing compared to our God. And so again, take it for what it is, but don't obsess over it. Sure, yeah, okay, they're giants. Great, fantastic. God, you said you got this, right? No problem. I believe you. Moving along. So let's go back to our story. Chapter 14, verse 1. The entire community raised their voices and shouted, and the people wept all night. Vatisa kol hayeda vaitnu et kulam, vayivku am balayla ahu. That night, my friends, was the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. That was that night. This is the saddest day in the Hebrew calendar. This will be the day that both temples will be destroyed in the future in the land. On the 9th of Av, it's a terrible fast day. It's a day of mourning. And this wailing and gnashing of the teeth is foreshadowing things to come. When we keep on reading, we can see the catastrophic effects that the influential minority has over the uneducated and simple majority. Okay? And did it matter that Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who are among those who had scouted the land, tore their clothes? They were in mourning now too. They were the first ones in mourning. Did it matter that they spoke to the entire congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to scout is exceedingly good land? Ha'aretz asher avarnu balatur ota, tova ha'aretz me'od me'od. Not just one me'od, not just one very, very, very good. Clearly, they did not listen to the word of God. But the leaders whose only interests was their own personal gain and retention of power, that's who the people were listening to ultimately. Verse 10, the entire congregation threatened to pelt them with stones, but the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the children of Israel. So what happened then? Moses did his job, and he interceded and he prayed for the sake of the people. Please forgive the iniquity of this nation in accordance with your abounding kindness, as you have borne this people from Egypt until now. And the Lord said, I have forgiven them in accordance with your word. Thank you for interceding for them. However, as I surely live, God says, and as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, perfect judgment, that all the people who perceived my glory and the signs that I performed in Egypt and in the desert, yet they have tested me these 10 times and not listened to my voice. In other words, everyone that came out of Egypt, everyone that witnessed my glory in Egypt, and now came out to the desert and didn't listen to my voice and provoked me these 10 times. Verse 23, if they will see the land that I swore to their fathers, and all who provoked me, they will not see it. But who will see it? Next verse. But as for my servant Caleb, since he was possessed by another spirit, and he followed me, I will bring him to the land to which he came, and his descendants will drive its inhabitants out. Ve'avdi, my servant Caleb, ekev haita ruach acheret. What is this ruach acheret? What is this other spirit that was possessing him? What is this? This was the spirit of evil, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the Satan. What did this man do? When he felt that he was going to be swayed, that his heart was going to be swayed towards peer pressure, how did he overcome? He humbled himself, admitting he was weak. He asked for help, and his very life was saved as a result. Not only that, he was granted entrance into the land of Israel and given the area of Hebron. He stood up to corruption and hypocrisy, and it was he who would enter into the land. While the entire generation who listened to those corrupt leaders, what was their end? In this desert, your corpses shall fall, your entire number, all those from the age of 20 and up who were counted, because you complained against me. You shall not come into the land concerning which I raised my hand, that you would settle in it, except Caleb ben Yefune and Yoshua bin Nun. I pray that our merciful Heavenly Father will give all those whose hearts truly desire to join Israel in truth, shall have the courage to stand up to all those opposing forces, whoever they may be, and say no. For the promises of God are good, and they are for me to receive. And may God judge those who make these little ones stumble. My dear friends, like I said, and I keep saying, once you're in, you are in. And then you will see that those false leaders and false teachers are powerless. That those giants who stand between you and between the promise that God has for you are nothing more than giant obstacles to be taken down by giant miracles. All this for the glory of God. Whew. Be bold, be empowered, and rise up and come and receive what's already been given to you. Let no man stand in your way. Never forget, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. That was awesome. Thank you once again for joining me. We passed 700 subscribers in this past week. That is so cool. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, if you like it, continue to subscribe and to share and all that good stuff. Send me emails if you have any questions. And, I receive them all, but, please forgive me if I don't respond or reply right away. I got a lot going on. Everyone's important, and I'll get to it. As always, thank you. Have a wonderful week, and Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.